Watch this press restrict a growing organic structure into a fixed, uniform square. It forces lived reality into administrative conformity. We see a similar mechanical compression in how modern society discusses alternative family structures, where the mainstream sociological narrative seamlessly merges the queer experience and the adoptive experience into a single celebratory framework. Social workers, legal professionals, and adoption agencies constantly rely on specific rhetorical bridges to link these two distinct demographics. They use phrases like "love makes a family" and celebrate the concept of chosen family as if they are discussing the exact same phenomenon. But applying that shared vocabulary relies on an emotional substitution. It uses sentiment to mask the underlying structural reality of how these families are formed. These two groups actually possess entirely opposed relationships to state power and biological history. When we frame adoption through the lens of queer liberation, these two distinct experiences appear identical. This narrative merger makes it difficult to see where one group's resistance ends and the other's legal requirement begins. Look at this typography layout comparing the two movements. On the left, we have the baseline of LGBTQ+ identity formation. At its core, this existence has always been about an individual claiming their identity in direct defiance of systems that attempt to deny it. Modern industrialized adoption operates in reverse. It functions by demanding strict, lifelong compliance with an identity that has been externally imposed upon the individual. Queer individuals have to fight for the right to declare, "This is who I am." Adoptees are handed a stack of amended legal documents that insist, "This is who you are now, regardless of truth." One group fights to exist without institutional permission. The other must officially petition the state merely to access the original records of their own birth. Queer survival is a process of identity formation. Structurally, adoption is a legally enforced process of identity reassignment. To understand how this reassignment works, we have to look past the emotional rhetoric of social work and examine the specific mechanics of family law. The as-if-born-to doctrine requires the state to seal original identity, issue a fabricated replacement, and demand lifelong compliance. While LGBTQ+ liberation dismantles imposed identities by breaking boundaries, adoption structurally enforces a rigid administrative grid. A system that requires the legal nullification of origin to function operates in direct opposition to movements dedicated to uncovering personal truth. This brings us to a crucial analytical question. How does each demographic interact with the concept of biological origin? Queer philosophy argues biology doesn't define destiny. Rejecting it is an act of expansion that leaves the past intact. Conversely, adoption policy treats biology as a history that must be eliminated and administratively severed for the newly assigned identity to hold. Queer identity says, biology does not define the limits of who I can be. Adoption policy dictates that biology must be erased so the new identity can hold. One expands the self, the other collapses it into something administratively acceptable. That administrative collapse is driven by an economic layer that socio-legal professionals intentionally avoid discussing. Modern adoption is built on the socio-economic transfer of children. They move from economically vulnerable families on the left to financially resourced families on the right. This transactional pipeline is accelerated by agency fees, subsidies, and tax incentives. Contrast this pipeline with the origins of queer chosen family. They emerge organically, built out of social exclusion, survival needs, and mutual aid. Adoptive families are frequently the engineered outcome of state-enabled separation, facilitated by thousands of dollars in financial transactions. Queer chosen family is a method of grassroots resistance. The adoption pipeline is an institutional transfer of human capital, driven by resource disparity. This is exactly why the phrases "love makes a family" and "it's not about blood" are deployed by the adoption industry. This borrowed language serves as an ideological shield. Superimposing the hard-won moral language of LGBTQ+ survival directly onto the adoption pipeline successfully prevents structural critique. It is difficult to analyze fees, subsidies, and state-mandated document forgery when the process is framed entirely through the lens of marginalized love. This co-optation transforms a highly regulated financial and legal process into an untouchable act of charity. Using queer terminology to defend adoption does not liberate adoptees. It merely moralizes a market transaction, shielding the actions of the state from public scrutiny. Despite contradictions, true solidarity begins with the shared weight of living perpetually misrecognized. Both groups navigate personal identities under constant institutional surveillance and share the exhaustion of constantly translating themselves to achieve administrative legibility within hostile legal frameworks. Solidarity lies in that shared systemic friction, found in the shared trauma of state legibility, not in a sanitized PR celebration of alternative family structures. Even recognizing shared friction, we must keep the end goals of these two groups entirely distinct. Queer individuals are fighting a systemic battle to be seen and legally recognized exactly as they currently exist. Adoptees are fighting a systemic battle to recover a foundational origin, one that was confiscated by the state before they even possessed the language to resist it. To collapse these two distinct battles into a single comfortable narrative is not an act of solidarity. It is an act of mutual erasure. We have to ask ourselves, when a system requires identity to be reassigned with legal force, who actually benefits from calling that liberation?